Americans today choose among more options in more parts of life that has ever been possible before. To an extent, the opportunity to choose enhance our lives. It's only logical to think that if some choices are good, more is better. People who care about having infinite options will benefit from them, and those who don't can always just ignore the 273 versions of cereal they have never tried. Research strongly suggests that psychologically, this assumption is wrong, with 5% lower percentage announcing they're happy. Although some choices are undoubtedly better than none, more is not always better than less. Recent research offers insight into why many people end up unhappy, rather than pleased when their options expand. We begin by making a distinction between maximizers, those who always aim to make the best possible choice, and satisficers, those who aim for good enough whether or not better selections might be out there. In particular, we composed a set of statements, the maximization scale, to diagnose people's propensity to maximize. Then we had several thousand people rate themselves from 1 to 7, from completely disagree to completely agree. On such statements, as I never settle for second best. We also evaluated their sense of satisfaction with their decisions. We didn't define a sharp cutoff to separate maximizers from satisficers. But in general, we think of individuals whose average scores are higher than 4, the scale's midpoint, as maximizers, and those whose scores are lower than the midpoint as satisficers. People who score highest on the test, the greatest maximizers, engage in more product comparisons than the lowest scorers, both before and after they make purchasing decisions, and they take longer to decide what to buy. When satisficers find an item that meets their standards, they stop looking, but maximizers exert enormous effort reading labels, checking out consumer magazines, and trying new products. They also spend more time comparing their purchasing decisions with those of others. We found that the greatest maximizers are the least happy with the fruits of their efforts. When they compare themselves with others, they get little pleasure from finding out that they did better than substantial dissatisfaction from finding out that they did worse. They are more prone to experiencing regret after a purchase. And if their acquisition disappoints them, their sense of well-being takes longer to recover. They also tend to brood or ruminate more than satisfiers do. Does it follow that maximizers are less happy in general than satisficers? We tested this by having people fill out a variety of questionnaires known to be reliable indicators of well-being. As might be expected, individuals with high maximization scores experienced less satisfaction with life and were less happy, less optimistic, and more depressed than people with low maximization scores. Indeed, those with extreme maximization ratings and had depression scores that placed them in the borderline of clinical range. Several factors explain why more choice is not always better than less, especially for maximizers. High among these are opportunity cost. The quality of any given option cannot be assessed in isolation from its alternatives. One of the costs of making a selection is losing the opportunities that a different option will have afforded. Thus, an opportunity cost of vacationing on the beach in Cape Cod might be missing the fabulous restaurant in the Napa Valley. Early decision-making research by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky showed that people respond much more strongly to losses than gains. If we assume that opportunity costs reduce the overall desirability of the most preferred choice, then the more alternatives there are, the deeper out sense of loss will be, the less satisfaction we will derive from our ultimate decision. The problem of opportunity cost will be better from satisficers. The latter's good enough philosophy can survive thoughts about opportunity cost. In addition, the good enough standard leads to much less searching and inspection of alternatives than the maximizer's best standard. With fewer choices, the under consideration of people will have fewer opportunity costs to subtract, just as people sorrow about the opportunity they have forgone. They may also suffer regret about the opportunity they settled on. My colleagues and I devised a scale to measure pronouns to feeling regret, and we found that people with high sensitivity to regret are less happy, less satisfied with life, less optimistic, and more depressed than those with low sensitivity. Not surprisingly, we also found that people with high regret sensitivity tend to be maximizers. Indeed, we think that worry over future regret is a major reason that individuals become maximizers. The only way to be sure you will not regret a decision is by making the best possible one. Unfortunately, the more options you have and the more opportunity cost you incur, the more likely you are to experience regret. In the classic demonstration of the power of sunk cost, people were offered season subscriptions in a local theater company. Some were offered tickets at full price and the other at a discount. Then the researchers simply kept track of how often the ticket purchasers actually attended the place over the cars are the reason. Full price payers more likely to show up at performance than discount payers. The reason for this, the investigators argued, was the full price payers would experience more regret if they did not use the tickets, because not using the more costly tickets would constitute a bigger loss. To increase sense of happiness, we can decide to restrict our options when the decision is not crucial. For example, make a rule to visit no more than 2 stores when shopping for clothing.